It's already on.
So
There you go.
Yeah, taste is never,
I guess
it's edible.
But
That's
All right, everybody.
They did that on World War II.
Ready?
Oh, turkey Alexander.
that
was turkey.
I have a plan. I have a food theory.
All right, everybody, if you have a copy of the memo, I'm going to get started. Is there anybody that doesn't have a copy of the memo? All right, great. First of all, thank you very much for coming. I'm Zennie Abraham, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Sports Business Simulations and Executive Producer of Zennie 62 Media. What I'm going to discuss today will be the assumptions that have went into this plan for a version of Coliseum City. The objective is to get us to a point where we're doing a stadium plan and not a land use plan. So I'll explain how I came to be involved in this, and I'll take all questions.
up a little closer to your audience.
And I'll take all questions
I'm his mother from
when
the previous marriage.
I'm done with the presentation. Now, at the NFL Spring League meeting, Mark Davis was very frustrated that he didn't have a plan for retaining the Raiders in Oakland. To make a long story short, and after I had asked him on camera why he was working with Carson, but the mayor of Oakland hadn't known about it, I was talking with him along with Mike Silver, my friend from the NFL Network. Mike looked at Davis, and I said to Mark, Mr. Davis, why don't you produce your own task force? Mr. Davis, in turn, shot up back and said, I want you to send me a stadium plan. And I said, say that one more time. He says, I want you to send a stadium plan. I said, I want you to send me a plan, send it to Will Kiss over there. So he said it 3 times. Why did I emphasize that? Because the exclusive negotiated agreement that was between Floyd Gephardt's New City Development LLC and the City of Oakland and the County of Alameda had a clause in it that said the Raiders could work with business partners right there. Now, the objective here is to get back to when we were innovators. And on that note, I want to take a moment to give a hand for former Oakland Mayor L.U. Harris. Thank you for bringing that back to me. And also get us to a point where we're aware of innovative public financing techniques and private placement financing techniques. Let me go over the assumptions. The idea was to have this as a $790 million stadium for the Raiders, and $500 million for the A's. Why $790 million? Because originally Mark Davis wanted a $1 billion stadium. But when I started to build the framework, I realized that at a $790 million cost, it allowed me to keep the east side of the Coliseum and sheathe it in such a way, as you can see here, so that it's a curtain wall. There are 146 different deficiencies in the design that we would take care of, but we would cover this in a curtain wall and improve its load-bearing capacity on that side. We would tear down the west side and the end zone and build entirely anew. 68,000 in capacity for the stadium, expandable by 5,000 for a Super Bowl. Now, the assumptions are as follows. First of all, the naming rights, I picked only at $50 million. And here's why. This deal doesn't need naming rights to function. The Raiders could come along and say, hey, you know what? We don't want to give up naming rights. Fine, keep it. Give us maybe 20 or 30%. But then I set it to 0, and it's still penciled out. When I made the spreadsheet, I tried to break it. In other words, all of the revenue estimates, for example, PSLs, I'm assuming only 60% sales. Now, as a rule of thumb, when we actually did the PSLs for the return of the Raiders, we only sold 67% of the PSLs. Am I right, boss? And as a result, that went default. Mine, by comparison, is 60%. That yields $54 million. What I've been trying to get the stadium project that requires no public money I asked a simple question, I thought so, and that is this. What does it take to build a privately financed facility that requires no public money? Why is it that Salesforce can build a $1 billion facility and at the same time it requires no public money whatsoever? The answer is simple, as a developer friend of mine said. All lease agreements. And that laid out the solution. So I began to test different hotel sizes. 200 rooms didn't work. 400 rooms, and I might add, what's great about being alive in 2015 is the internet. There's thousands of spreadsheets that you can pull from, all state of the art. And I basically pulled together the state-of-the-art hotel spreadsheet, state-of-the-art financing spreadsheet, assumed the W hotel in terms of cost estimate, and then upped it by 15%. I tried to break the spreadsheet with a revenue perspective. And then I said, how many different types of revenue opportunities can I squeeze out for an industrial development lease revenue bond issue? I squeezed out 10. But the luxury is this. For example, personal seat license, while there would be 45,000 of them, the average cost for them would be just $2,000. The lowest in the National Football League. The lowest. Luxury boxes, $125,000 per. That's well within the ACOM study, which said that this market could support a $100 million PSL sale. We only need $54 million in the deal that I crafted. That's it. The hotel produces a combined $1 billion in revenue, but it costs $221 million to build. So if you think about that over a 40-year period, we take 50%, 55% of that revenue, use it for hotel construction, get a hotel partner like Piper Jaffray investment bankers had in mind, and they would develop the hotel part as a partner. The A Stadium, 150 luxury boxes, 35,000 square feet of retail, and of the 400 rooms, approximately 50% of them overlooking the field. You can't get a hotel room situation like that in the world. And if you go to Google and you type Oakland Raiders ticket packages, like if you're traveling, the number one result is the Embassy Suites in San Francisco. It's not here. The sports tourism industry is $600 billion in size. We have done nothing to capture it. This will do it. If this is built this way, there will be nothing in the entire world like it at all. So I know that many of you have a question. I'll get to that in a second. I just want to get to some more assumptions. First of all, this. The financing is called Industrial Development Lease Revenue Bond Issue. And out of it, because of the hotels and the $225 per room cost, we were able to realize a $518 million surplus. $518 million. And that, under the Ryder decision of 1998, a municipality can actually use that money for any other use it wanted to. That's on top of the $218 million in new taxes. So that's $700 million in revenue to be used. Why all that? To make this a liquid, securitized financing deal. The model of which, in that instance, is St. Louis and Bush Memorial Stadium. So, the spreadsheet you're looking at, again, was first produced for Piper Jaffray Investment Bankers, and they found all numbers sound. With that, I'll take your questions.
So, Zennie, well, we were talking about the defaulted bond of one of the stadium deals. Do you want to talk about how that would alleviate some of the concern that Oaklanders might have?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's very important to understand what an industrial development bond issue is, an industrial development lease revenue bond issue. The United States Code allows for this for manufacturing purposes. But a number of states around the country have, for want of a better term, adjusted it to incorporate tourism, incorporate service industries. Particularly Florida is the best example of this. We can do the same. Now, we would need to have an exemption, but an industrial development bond issue allows, in this case, a joint powers authority or a municipality to float a bond issue, but they're not responsible for paying back the bond issue. Lease revenue means you bring together different revenue streams, personal seat license, in this case, hotel revenues, ticket surcharge, and so on. And each one of those becomes part of a security, a bond. And that bond is sold on the open market to underwriters, by an underwriter to bond investors. Like if you read the bond buyer, you can see what the bonds are going for, right? If the bond defaults, it's up to the bond insurer and the investors to pay it back. That's very common. And I'll give you an example of where that happened. It happened to a team that everybody knows, the Houston Texans. But no one knows about the problem. The bond issue was structured in such a way that the city of Houston and Harris County were not on the hook if they went into default. That happened in 2009 after the stock market crash. They went into default. MBIA, the bond insurer, tried to bully the city of Houston and even threatened a lawsuit against Harris County if they didn't cover the bond default. To put this in a very digestible term, the city of Houston and Harris County told them what to go do with themselves. The taxpayer had no idea this was going on because the taxpayer was never on the hook. That's the extreme example. That's the extreme example. So we have it in our way to do that. When I was talking with Elihu about the Warriors deal a few months ago, and I said, hey, I was reading the fine print, and the City of Oakland and the County of Alameda did not have to pay back the bonds if they happened to go in default. And Elihu said to me something very funny. He said, you think I'm stupid enough to do the same deal twice? Thank you. So, the bottom line is that there's an idea that all of these deals are the same. No. Each deal around the country, even around the world, is as different as the cities they're located in. And we have the ability to do a deal that really costs no money, but most importantly, doesn't cost the Raider family money. That's the most important issue. Thank you. That's the most important issue. Okay? That's the most important issue. We can do it. And again, the Raiders have said to me, oh, we're on E&A, we can't talk right now. I talked with Mr. McKibben and Rebecca Kaplan. We had a great meeting. Everyone that I've talked to, when I've been able to present my numbers, has agreed they work. And that includes Piper Jaffrey. We had a great 1-hour conference call to Mr. McKibben and Councilmember Kaplan. Hey, who's next? I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
I'm a very big fan of your proposal.
Thank you.
I like the cost efficiency of it. I think that the hotel can bring all kinds of business for non-football days and non-sports days as a whole. My one question is not really directed towards you. It's directed towards the Raiders almost. They seem like they've been really insistent about that. It's not really feasible to refurbish the Coliseum. Of course, I don't talk to them. It seems like they're big on we need a new stadium.
Well, this is a new stadium.
Go ahead. You're explaining exactly.
No, that's a great question. This is a new stadium. Again, the west side, and all this will be torn down. When I say retain the east side, I mean the 22,000-seat structure that holds it, and the 90 luxury boxes there. That is a great model for it to expand. In fact, I remember when Nate Miley was the council member, and Elihu had me representing him on the Community and Economic Development Agency Advisory Committee, I presented an issue regarding my concern that our stadiums are going to be obsolete. And Nate Miley said, what do you mean? We just brought the Raiders back. We spent $200 million. And I said, yeah, we did, but we didn't get a state-of-the-art stadium. We got one-half a state-of-the-art stadium. The east side, by design, is still state-of-the-art. We can replicate it, but even then, there are a lot of problems. Everything from the baseboards and the luxury boxes, mostly on the west side, not properly structured, to the lack of a hole, which will be here, so that you can get Super Bowl level entertainment equipment in and out, ingress and egress. That would be a $120,000, $200,000 expenditure alone. Why is that important? Because if you notice, when this is gone for baseball days, there's a hole there, okay? But the problem is when you bring this football seats in, it covers up the hole. We didn't think about that when we developed it. Meanwhile, event planning has changed to such a great deal that the equipment's on giant rollers, it's motorized, but we didn't have a way of easily getting out. The slots on either end, you have to tear them down and put them in here, and it becomes a big headache. That's one problem. That's one problem. Okay?
That's a major problem, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Because if we can't handle that kind of equipment, we can't do the big events. If we can't do the big events, then we can't get the sponsorship money that will help pay for it. So it's a huge problem. Now, the other issue regarding what you're saying is that we would break up Mount Davis so that there's not that heat problem and cantilever it, but then strengthen the back end. You know that back end where the deck is supported? It needs to be better load bearing. I know I'm getting into a great deal of detail, but that's what it takes to do these things. You know, I mean, in what I said to the mayor, our current mayor, our good mayor, is that, hey, Chris is here.
Hey guys,
Yeah. And what I said to our current mayor is that under a task force, which we can still do, we can flesh out all these problems behind closed doors and really reduce the public rancor that we had and the gossip and everything else. Hope that answered your question.
Yes,
I want to
it did.
thank Chris Dobbins for his help.
yeah, we're Zennie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Let's see. And Steve, I want to thank you because actually you're the originator of Coliseum City. So thank you very much.
Don't know about that.
Well, and Frank Dobson is one who passed on. So
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
So, in terms of the outside activities, the hotel, is LA Live the kind of a model?
yes, absolutely. It's a great question. Yes, sir.
Because part of the thing, obviously, is you got football 10 days a year, and if baseball remains 82 days.
Yes, sir.
So you got obviously another couple hundred days a year where there are not ongoing activities. For example, Oakland, you're not having adequate convention center. Is that something that might be envisioned?
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that because first of all, I calculated that there are 4.2 million visitors to the Coliseum because, for example, we have markets or truck events and everything else. There are only, out of every month, let me put it another way, there are 8,463,000 potential room nights that the Coliseum generates. The hotel alone only needs 364,000 room nights to pencil out. That's it. Okay, I calculated that some time ago. The bottom line is, contrary to popular belief, the Coliseum really is a kind of year-round, structure. Gary, hold that this way. Gary, hold that this way.
Yeah.
That way, thank you. So I'll adjust.
I'm trying to get a wider lens for your questions.
Alcohol will do that, but that's okay. Yes,
So,
Stan, I'm
so there
sorry.
were kind of two sides to the story. One of them is the sports side.
Right.
The stadium should all make sense. But then there was the retail side of it, and that's kind of what Kephart was saying.
No.
Was he averse to what you're proposing, or did you ever meet to talk to him about how
I
the
did. I
retail
talked to
component?
Clint about it at the MGO meeting, and then also at the Rotary Club. Great question.
Yeah.
And you don't want to say again, I have nothing against Play Gift Card. That was never the case. It's a matter of just having different proposals and ideas. But he was under the contention that Mr. Davis would not go for the JPA as a master developer. He said, oh, Mark Davis will never go for that. My counter was, we have to present to Mr. Davis something that works for us, not just for the Raiders. And I say this for this reason, and this goes into something I really believe, that we're being set up by the NFL in such a way that we're giving a hurdle that's higher and higher and higher. And what we have is that San Diego has met the hurdles. We haven't. We haven't. But what they're doing is saying, okay, you haven't met these hurdles, so we're going to move to LA. And that from a standpoint of filing an injunction, it hurts our cause of action. Yes, sir.
This is my personal statement.
Sure.
Part of the reason that the Raiders came back and they were really doing well in Los Angeles. There's no indication they're going to do well if they go back to LA. There's so many other things to do in Los Angeles. Transportation is so bad. How are they going to compete with another team playing every other Sunday in this new arena? I don't think there's enough fan base for that in LA. I mean, LA has been 20, 30, almost 30 years without an NFL team. That goes on really well down there without an NFL team. So I think if the idea of moving to LA is generated by the idea of having a TV audience for the game. And I don't think they're going to sell out down there. And I certainly don't think San Diego, which doesn't sell out in San Diego, and Oakland, which is having problems selling out in Oakland, are not the right teams.
You're absolutely right.
LA. So I think that one thing we got to do, it's not as easy as you think. We're going to pack up, we're going to move to LA, and La La Land is going to be wonderful. But that's fantasy land. And I think the one of the things in terms of having an alternative is that compared to what? And right now, we don't have an alternative like you're trying to produce. And we're saying, okay, well, that's better than nothing. And what we got in Oakland is nothing. So I don't understand why your proposal, you shouldn't even consider realistically, there's nothing else on the table.
Because there's two, I mean, that's an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up. It goes back to, and it joins with the statement that I made previously, or I was about to make. Let me put it this way. The NFL said they were rationale and moved to Los Angeles. And basically, I'm standing in the way of it. I mean, they love that Oakland is not acting. In fact, if you want a little way to see this, if you take a look at my video where Eric Grumman said that Oakland doesn't have a viable plan. When I start to ask the question, the commissioner looks over to Grumman and he goes like that, okay? Because what the NFL has liked is the fact that the Oakland's inaction has given them a reason to move. Now, it is all about television revenue. If they walk into a meeting with Cap City's Disney, one issue that comes up in the negotiating table is, hey, you're not in the second largest media market in the world, so you're absolutely 1,000% correct. Carmen Policy, on the other hand, said to me in an interview that he says their studies work out and that PSLs can sell down there. Personally, I don't believe it, but they say that having an extra team helps in terms of the Chargers. That's what they're saying. That's their party line. But yes, it's 1,000% about the television contract and not selling out.
So this is not about political manipulation, is it?
Well, it is a political manipulation. Really, the governor should be involved.
This is politics.
Yeah, it's politics and economics.
Right.
But also,
Not good.
right. But I mean, look, in a perfect world, this is a setup. We're being set up. And what I've tried to say to the media for months now is, hey, look, tell the other story to reveal the fact that we're being set up here so that the public knows about it. That's the whole point. So, Bob, did you?
Yeah, I actually did have a question. A statement and a question.
Sure.
First statement, which qualifies my question, is, in my opinion, San Diego is going to go back to San Diego. The Rams people are going to get theirs, and the Raiders are going to be sitting back wondering where the hell they're going to go. So my question is, how can you present this as the most viable alternative?
All I can do is present the numbers, and all I ask again, and I've asked this from the mayor and everybody else, give me a chance to sit down and go over the numbers with you. I have laid out a plan for a securitized financing. The internal rates of return are there. All the industry standard calculations are there. There's nothing there that is untoward or unusual. Pat Cashman, one of our consultant for real estate, great drinking buddy, and I disagreed with him in meetings, said to me in the conversation, oh, your hotel room project's not going to work. No one's ever built a hotel of that size in years. And I said, Pat, because it's 808 rooms. And I said, Pat, actually, it's a 60% occupancy assumption that makes it 610. He goes, oh. I said, Pat, did you read it? Well, no, not really. HVS Consulting has a multi-point plan for evaluating the success of a hotel in a region. One of them is there a comparable hotel to the one that's being proposed? There is no hotel like this, not only in this region, in the entire United States. A. B. The Raiders and the A's will be able to stay here. But beyond the Raiders and the A's, we go after college football events. We create our own events. X Games, Monster Truck.
Yeah, why not?
We could have fans staying here. We could get, I mean, the possibilities are endless as long as we have the tool. We don't have the tool. All I'm asking, to get back to your question, is to be in a hot room where we're arguing back and forth, and I'm able to produce the calculations that are industry standards. That's all I'm asking.
I don't think they're gonna understand you.
Oh, there are people that do. Hey,
A lot of people that do, but I don't think the city understands you.
but Diane, look, LAU has worked with, we've worked with a number of people that are very bright, yet people in the city who are bright. We just need to get over the idea of not arguing. Arguing is good. I love to argue because you know your convictions and you know your understandings, right? But we can't be genteel about this. This is a matter of doing the deal. This is a matter of doing something that works, Gary.
So Zennie, one of the things that seems to be coming out here is that clearly you're offering an alternative to the idea of a PSL. So the hotel basically replaces the concept of a PSL. In part.
Yeah.
Also, it seems as if the arguing that you're talking about, you know, you're from a perspective of a city that was snake bit and is sitting in the debt, right? The argument is essentially, how do you ameliorate that concern from somebody who has been snake bit?
And that is why it's producing a plan, and it's going beyond, I'm not going to spend public money, because everyone says that it's running for office. This proves we don't have to do it, and it gets us used to terms like industrial development lease revenue bond issues, or private placement bond issues. We have had such a turnover. For example, Gregory Hunter, economic development, not there anymore. Fred Blackwell, economic development, not there anymore. You know, you can name everyone. They're all gone. We've had such a turnover in staff that our institutional memory is dead. A task force would have allowed us to access that institutional memory.
Wow.
Okay? And it would have put the years of premature on. We can still do that. Yes, sir.
So I want to get a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I see a couple things.
Yeah,
One,
absolutely.
one of the reasons there's nothing going on with this, and part of it's what you said about the problems from the 95 deal in terms of paying off the bonds. There's no real political will to do this. Let's be straight up. It's not like people are trying to do this deal. They're trying to figure out how to do the deal without any risk. And there's always risk when you're doing something like
Real
this.
though.
And so you first got to say, are the political leaders, including the mayor, willing to take a risk? Something they believe in, not just anything, but an intelligent risk. Number two, there's got to be a sense that there is a willingness and desire to keep the teams here. Not just if they want to stay, or if it's convenient. And the other thing is there is no good politics in sports. And I learned the hard way, there are more people reading the front page than read the sports page. There are many sports fans, and they're enthusiastic and energetic. But somehow or other, this got to be done on the economic level. People understand the benefits of this. I mean, for me, it was several. One, I thought Oakland was a major league city. And one of the things that defined us as being not just a suburb of San Francisco, we had our own sports team. That might not have meant to a lot, but I thought it was an economic draw for corporations, for others who might be saying, is Oakland a real city, or is Oakland just Brooklyn across the bay? Secondly, I think it's important that people understand these jobs not only been created by the existing Coliseum. I mean, there are literally thousands of jobs that are out at the Coliseum and Oracle Arena. And if you let those jobs go, these are jobs for which many of our folks have no alternative because they're not highly skilled jobs. You know, in a time when you talk about the technology industry, taking jobs, people making $100,000 a year working in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, the kind of job that exists at the Coliseum, the kind of job that high school graduates could do. And that's what we have a lot of over here. They can't get jobs in the port, but they could get jobs in the service industry, they can certainly get jobs in the sports industry, and they certainly get jobs working in hotels and other kinds of things. So it seems to me part of this argument has got to be based on we're creating jobs.
Right.
Permanent, long-term jobs. That takes an investment. This is not just about building a sports facility for rich athletes. Because the argument always goes, why are we building a place for millionaire basketball players? You know, how are we building a place for millionaire owners, billionaire owners? So I think we got to try to reframe the argument, saying, look, we need to create the economic engine that an LA Live has been in Los Angeles. Yes, there's risk involved. What else we got going? Our downtown is dead. We don't have any retail. Our convention center is too small to draw national or even large regional conventions. So we're going to build a convention center, number one. Or we're going to build a hotel that will support that convention center. Or we're going to build a nightlife and we're going to do retail that could be situated in a place, quite frankly, is neither dangerous nor, in fact, is it so populated and dense that you can't put anything else there. I mean, all these things, I think, lend itself, you're really exploring this with some enthusiasm and some energy, and some willingness to take political risk. But if that's not on the table, I don't care how good Zennie's idea is, they're running away from it because it might work, not because it won't work.
Bob, and then after Bob, Fred, and then Michelle.
Excellent point.
Let's assume
Shows
that
there are examples out there.
your plan is the best viable plan at this point. That has to mean that whoever's building the hotel is going to make a profit. How do you get that person involved in the construction?
Well, that's
the
point.
finance.
I'm glad you asked. Piper Jaffray and Peter Philippi, he's their hotel. He is Piper Jaffray's hotel deals representative. Diane Pauly immediately put me in touch with him. But then before he and I talked more, they brought in another 6-person deal team when we had the conference call specifically to go over my numbers. Specifically to go over, and they were satisfied with that. But what they wanted to know, the next step was, well, hey, is this really enough for us to think we can get in on this, coal? And I said to them, I was very blunt. I said, right now I can't assure that, but I would definitely vouch for you all as the organization to work with. Because they gave me time that they didn't have to give. They took it seriously, they looked at the numbers, and they went forward. So the bottom line is, if we get they're investment banks that have hotel partners, Piper Jaffray is one, that's doable. I gave all this information to Libby. I gave all this information to Claudia. They've had it for months. Okay? They've had it. So
I think fear is a medium in this. I really do. I think fear is the number one medium in this whole project. They're afraid of risk. They have no idea how to project the future. That's the second thing. And no initial cost. They can't project an initial cost.
She hasn't, although she was involved in discussions in previous administrations. Right? Under Quan, right, originally?
Then that the teams don't work well together, the owners don't work well together, nobody's communicating. What's your plan if the Raiders go for this? What's your plan with the A's?
Well, I had the A's in mind.
How are we going to sell them?
Sure. Mr. Wolf has said from the start, you want to see the pipe fans?
Thank you. Sure. Thank you very much.
Share. Mr. Wolf has said that he didn't want to compete with PSL sales with the Raiders. The spreadsheet shows a ticket surcharge option for the A's is $5 by the scale. And it's sized over the assumption only 17,000 people average per game for the A's. That's a low average. Okay? That's a low average. And yet it pencils out. It gives us over a 40-year bond period over $300 million. The point is, I don't need the PSLs for the A's, so Mr. Wolf doesn't have to worry about his fan base competing for the PSL market with the Raider fan base. You see what I'm getting at? So that's off the table. I've taken that off the table.
Are you in contract with him? Or?
I've known Dave Bernetti for 22 years. He's stadium operations manager. Mike Crowley, A's president. I've known since I created my Oakland baseball symbol, and I thought they were actually Major League Baseball told me the A's were trying to steal my game from me. So yeah, we all know each other really well.
So Zennie, let me just jump in front of your other questions. Since you're talking about PSLs, right? PSLs in a way are a way of deferring risk. You're basically buying upfront. You're saying I'm gonna put my money up and I'm gonna let it sit there at no benefit to myself, but I'm gonna hold my seat with this money that I'm lending you for nothing, essentially. In a underwriting scenario, so Piper Jaffray or whatever, do you want to, not to get too technical, but do you want to lay out the sort of the underwriting risk, ameliorating risk,
Sure.
which is really what we're talking
I'm
about.
glad you mentioned that. The ACOM study says that this market can support 100 million in PSLs. Floyd Gephardt said he expected 200 million for PSLs. No one asked him what that boils down to on a per seat basis. That was my first consideration. So I only need $54 million. That's what I'm projecting for mine. I don't need the 100 million. The point is that is 50% of what an organization, ACOM, who studies, I'm really not in favor because their methodology is kind of like what I'm not do, but that's what they say works, okay? I frankly hold the market is actually better than that because it's tied to how the Raiders don't market well, all right? So I would say the market is really more 150 million, but I'm not going to ask the fans to pay that because of the tenuous nature of jobs that we have in today's society. Did I answer your question?
Yes, to a degree.
Chris. Sorry, let's see.
I think Mayor Harris and Mr. Williams made a great point that the biggest obstacle is fear, and because of the 95-94 deal, the Raiders coming back. And I've kind of been looking for this for a while. And I don't have the expertise to do this.
Come on in, water's fine.
I don't think there's been an analysis what happens if the Raiders leave. Like I'm a season ticket holder, so I know